So let's look at this last question, 10.30, lactose intolerance. If you read through the question stem, that's some theory. What is lactose intolerance? Digesting dairy products, and it's certain in some population or some type of population. And just go to this part where we have numbers. That's the data we have. But sometimes we also want to read through the question stem if to get some idea whether the events are independent, not independent, total sample space, and so on. And when you go to this particular, reach this particular number, 82% of the population is white, 14% black, 4% Asian, and then there's some other information. 15% of whites, 70% of blacks, and 90% of Asians are lactose intolerant. So first question is asking what percent of the entire population is lactose intolerant. So basically all lactose intolerant. So let's just first derive what is given in the question stem. So 82% of population is white. That means probability of white being from the population is 0.82. 14% is black, so probability of black is 0.414, and 4% is Asian. Probability of Asian PA is 0.04. Now, if you read to the second sentence, that's some conditional probabilities because it says 15% of whites, 17% of blacks, 19% of Asians are lactose intolerant. So in this case, if you try to split it into specific events and um, condition, your specific event of interest in this case is lactose intolerant. And then you have conditions. Okay, if the condition is white, then that is the percentage. If the condition, that's first condition. If second condition is blacks, then that's the percentage. And if third condition is Asian, then that's the percentage. So that's why we are going to transform that data or given information into probability of lactose intolerance. That's the specific event of interest, given that it's within white population, right? And that's 15%, so that's 0.15. And similarly, you can do that for probability of lactose intolerance, given that it's amongst blacks, that's 0.70. Probability of lactose intolerance given that Asian, 90%, 0.90. And first question is asking us what percentage of the entire population is lactose intolerant. So you just have to consider that these three communities constitute as total sample space, and then you just have to add all of them with the lactose intolerance. So probability of lactose intolerance will be probability of lactose intolerance among white, probability of lactose intolerance amongst black, probability of lactose intolerance amongst Asian as well. So you know that you need to have probability of whites and lactose intolerance, probability of blacks and lactose intolerance, and probability of Asians and lactose intolerance. And since these are AND events, you have to solve multiplication. You have to apply the multiplication rule, right? And we can certainly see that there is a conditional probability, so these events are not independent, so there is some dependency, so we are going to use multiplication rule of probability for AND that's with this condition. So probability of W, or that is white and lactose intolerance, will be probability of white times probability of lactose intolerance, given that it's within white population. And we know that probability of white is 0.82. That's why 0.82 times probability of lactose intolerant, given that it's in white, we know that that's 0.15, that's 0.15, and then you're just going to multiply, solve that particular part. Similar thing you're going to apply for this probability of B. like this, probability of A. So just follow through those, plug in those number correctly in that particular multiplication rule for conditions or not independent events, and then you're going to get that final answer somewhere around this. That's the total probability of lactose intolerance in the entire population. Now for the part B, what percentage of people who are lactose intolerant are Asian? So we are saying, okay, so what is the question asking us? So what, who are lactose intolerant are Asians. So we are saying that those has to be lactose intolerant. So that's the condition that we are imposing here. And we are specifically interested in Asian. So our specific event is Asian. This is the condition. So that's why the probability that's asking in this question is probability of Asian, given that those are among from the lactose intolerant. So if you are confused, just watch it again and again, and it's just the word play that you have to do. Dissect what is specific event condition and derive the proper information or the question. And if you go back to the rule of conditional probability, that's the rule. Probability of A given that L is probability of A and L upon probability of L. So basically, if you transform them into A and B, you can simply get that. But follow that rule from the chapter. So that's the rule. So simply for conditional probabilities. And you know that this particular A and L, you can also simply do this multiplication, but we already got it, I think, somewhere. A and L, so this part. But if you haven't solved it here, solve that here. Upon probability of lactose intolerant among total population, and we got it from this first A part. So just plug in those numbers. Probability of A times probability of L given A. L given A is given also 0.90, and probability of L we just derived in A part, that's 0.257, and if you solve, that will be the answer that you'll get.